friends, in today's tutorial video, I'm going to show you 2 ways to draw script lettering in Procreate. First things first, let's go over the sketching brush that I use. So go under sketching and find an HB pencil. I've adapted mine, so if you click on it, I've adjusted the stabilization. Streamline is set to about 80 and stabilization is set to 30. The word that I'm going to illustrate today is beautiful, so I'm going to start off by drawing a few capital B's to figure out which one I want to go with. And again, I have a calligraphy background, so these come a little bit more naturally to me. If you want references, I suggest Googling script alphabets or looking up calligraphic workbooks. So I'm feeling good about these two. We're just going to shrink them, put them off to the side, and I want to create one that has an element at the top of the B, just in case I need to use it for flourishes later. I'm going to scale this one down so they're all the same size and I can take a look, and I feel like the one in the middle is my favorite, so we'll go with that. Step number 1 is to lay down the framework of your word. So I start with a capital B and loosely sketch out the letters. Now this is where all of those practice drills come in and you're able to draw the letters with ease. And I'm drawing this lowercase l with a big loop just to balance out the capital B on the other side. And I love big swashes and flourishes, so we're going to add that in and make sure we add the dot or tittle on the I. One thing that's apparent is that the bottom half of the word is pretty empty and sparse, so I'm breaking apart this A and seeing if I can fill that space with a stroke. Looks terrible, not into it. I decide to try again with the letter U. Now when you're lettering, not all the letters have to connect as long as it's legible, but I hate that the U is almost hitting the F, so we're scrapping that idea. I'm just going to extend the swoosh on the L, but don't like that it's going under the F, so we're going to extend the stroke of the F so that the L goes through. Now there's dead space on the top, so we're going to scrap this B and replace it with something that has an element that extends above the capital letter, something like this. The part I love about sketching is that it's problem solving, so if you feel like there's a visual gap, see if you can extend the strokes to fill the space better. You don't want to feel like you're trying too hard and things are crowded. You do want to achieve visual balance, and this just takes a lot of practice and looking at reference material. Now I'm moving on to the top section where I feel like it's still missing an element, and what I'm doing here really isn't working. So let's see if we can have elements tuck within each other. I like how this feels and we're gonna roll with it. If you've ever seen my work, you know how much I love sparkles. I actually use these not only to give the piece a whimsical feel, but to fill in any negative space. Along with sparkles, I also love using these energy lines. They give the piece movement and allow your eye to flow from one element to the next. This is feeling pretty good, so I'm going to lower the opacity, create a new layer, and start inking. And for this first pass that I'm going to show you, I'm going to go under calligraphy and use a script brush. So this is my process for inking a piece just using a script lettering brush where the ends are tapered. So that means I can achieve thick and thin lines just by applying pressure. Now this is just easier for me because of my calligraphy background. It means I don't actually have to draw elements. I can just write them using muscle memory, which is why we practice, guys. I did want to show you this part of the video where I undo and redo this about 1,000 times. That's because even though I have the muscle memory, the angles might not be exactly the way I want them, or maybe I press down a little bit too hard on one of the strokes. It's totally okay to undo and redo as many times as you want. We're going to continue drawing all of these swashes and flourishes, and one thing I like to do is create a new layer when I'm drawing in crossbars. That way I don't actually have the lines intersecting, which means I can move them and adjust the crossbar as needed, which I'll demonstrate in just a second when I want to shift it down just a little bit. I like where the crossbar is, but now I'm going to go in and erase part of this stroke and make sure I draw in the tittle of the eye. And now I can go in and add in the design elements. So this piece is feeling pretty good as it is. I could go back in and tighten up the line work, make sure all the curves are curvy, and maybe that part of the bowl of the bottom B is a little too close, but for the most part, it's pretty good. So now let me show you the second method with which I draw my script letters. I'm going to go to inking and use the technical pen. Streamline is set to 80, stabilization to 54. And now we go in and ink it using our script lettering underneath as our guide. And one thing I'm going to do in this part is to create fat bottom lettering. So I'm still using the script lettering we did earlier as a guide, but I'm extending the lower part of the letter form to give it that fun 70s feel. And we're just gonna keep drawing our elements. And I wanted to zoom in and show you the difference when I ink it this way. So I'm cutting the top of the letter form and making sure the bottom of the letter forms are consistent in terms of spacing and rhythm. So this is at 4 times speed. I'm gonna speed it up a little bit more because I'm basically just doing the same thing over and over again. One pro tip that I wanted to mention is that when you're drawing big curves like this, use your whole forearm and draw from your elbow, not your wrist. It creates a smoother line. And you can see here I'm moving my whole arm. It might take a few tries, but it's still a lot smoother than just bending at the wrist to create these curves. Now I've sped up the video about 6 times from its actual speed, just so you can get an idea of what the process looks like. You'll notice that I keep turning my canvas and I draw curves towards me. It makes for a more organic shape. And I'm feeling pretty good about this piece. I did not have this sketched out before I created this tutorial, so I'm pretty proud of how it came out. Now I'm just going in and erasing the part where the letters are connected so that I can just drop and fill these elements. Oh, it's so satisfying. If there's a way that you can find to work smarter and not harder, absolutely do it. All that's really left to do is to clean up the line work. So I'm going in and filling in any small gaps that were not filled in. Now, if this were a client piece, I'd spend more time going in making sure the curves were nice and curvy and the lines straight, but this is pretty good. The one glaring thing I notice is that the E is feeling a little bit thin compared to the other letters. So I'm gonna go back in and add some more weight to the inside of that E, and then zoom out to see how it feels. And voila, we're all done. I hope this was helpful. Let me know what you think.